I did win two arguments with my father. The first one was I have no idea how we got started on this conversation, but I had all the kids in the car and we were going for a drive to take a hike. And somehow, I don't know, Andrew, who always was interested in what his grandpa had to say and why did his grandpa think the way that he did, his grandpa, or Andrew wants to know, why, Grandpa, do you hate the Jews? And why do people hate the Jews? And so my dad's getting all wound up to give an answer to that question. And I said, well, Pop, would you mind if I took a try at answering that question? And he was a little suspicious because he didn't think I'd be reliable, but he let me. And I said, okay, so how's this? For centuries, the Jews were confined to ghettos. And these ghettos often had a wall around them of vertical timbers, which is called a pale. A vertical wall like that is called a pale. And that's why we use the expression beyond the pale. And so there was not much a point in accumulating property or gold because the Cossacks or the dominating population would come in with a pogrom and take everything, steal everything, and maybe kill people. So, well, and you wouldn't want to bury your treasures because that would just lead to torture to find it. So there was no point in accumulating wealth. So instead, they worked on knowledge and accumulating knowledge, accumulating expertise. And so over the centuries, they just developed this culture of getting more and more intelligent and focusing on work they could do that was based on knowledge and intelligence. And I said, so as a consequence then, the surrounding peoples were jealous of that Jewish kids were growing up to have such a focus on hard work in their studies and becoming intelligent. And for a while, the Ivy League schools had a quota where they would only let in a certain percentage of Jewish students because if they didn't have that quota, there'd be a very large percentage of their student population would be Jewish because those kids just work harder. So I said, that is the reason that a lot of people resent the Jews because they are, people are lazy and they want to rely on their natural talents without having to work so damn hard, without having to work as hard as Jewish kids are forced to work by their parents. Now, my dad is very respectful. He had a high esteem for intelligence and studiousness. So this answer made a lot of sense to him. He really liked it. And so he just acknowledged, yeah, I think that's a good answer. I was impressed. Okay. So, and I don't know, I assume Andrew understood what I was talking about. The other thing was that my dad absolutely hated FDR. And so one time he was going on about how FDR was given credit for ending the Great Depression. And my dad said it wasn't FDR and his New Deal, all that crap. It was the war. The war ended the Depression. And I said, okay, so wait a minute. By borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars for military equipment that we used for 3 years and then either dropped it in the ocean or parked it out in the desert in Arizona and had no further use for it, we just trashed this very expensive equipment that we had borrowed hundreds of millions of dollars for and all the money that we borrowed to pay the soldiers, etc. That's what ended the Depression? He said, yeah. And I said, so Congress was willing to give FDR, piddly millions, maybe tens of millions, if that, to do the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Public Works Administration, these different New Deal programs of FDR. And I said, so supposing that Congress had been willing to borrow and invest hundreds of millions in libraries, parks, national parks, improved trails. Like, man, there's this fantastic trail on Eagle Creek near Bonneville Dam in Oregon that the Civilian Conservation Corps, FDR's money, we really enjoyed that trail. So the nation would be so enriched by universities and art projects and civic developments if we had borrowed hundreds of millions of dollars instead of the piddly amounts Congress gave him. I said, wouldn't that have brought us out of the Depression? And then instead of a bunch of military junk that we dropped in the ocean, we'd have these investments that would last us for centuries. My dad had said, well, I'm too old to be able to think clearly. You've got the advantage on me.